McConnell.
Why is Chris Grayling in so much of a hurry to privatise our probation service that he is prepared to put the public at risk?
Paris Lees.
I made a very stupid mistake when I was 16 and I went to prison just a week after my 18th birthday. And thank goodness for the youth offending team and the probation service, which helped me get back on track. And I remember when I was inside that I think the statistic that was bandied about that something like 2/3 of first-time offenders would end up back inside within 2 years of being released. And that was really depressing, and it really made us feel that, you know, well, the odds are stacked against us. So I think for young people, you know, there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of rehabilitation. And I'm not saying that it's perfect, but the probation service do a very good job at the moment.
What did they do for you? What did you get from them?
They helped me back. They managed my transition back into society. They helped me find work. They helped me extend my curfew so that I could work as well as go to college in the daytime. Practical help. They help find a family member that you can go and live with. And they work really hard and they actually care about the people that they're working with. And my worry is that if we privatise it, when really have we privatised something where it's led to a greater service of people and more care for people? It just doesn't, you know?
Matthew Hancock.
The problem of repeat offending is an enormous one. And the chances of somebody coming out of prison and going back into prison are extremely high, and they're far too high. And making sure that we care for people properly and support them when they come out of prison is so important. For instance, that, you know, the delay from being released to getting your first benefit check often pushes people back into crime because they're desperate when they come out.
I think the question was why are you privatising the probation service, not what flaws are there.
No, and I'm answering the question because I think what Chris Grayling is doing and proposing is that people have support when they're in prison, and that support stays with the same people as they leave and then stays with them afterwards, and then the people who support them are then paid according to how successful they are at keeping people out of prison. And making sure that we get the incentives right on the probation service is really important, because the vital thing here is to follow the evidence of what works internationally, because crucially...
The evidence says that it's good and exceptional.
No,
there's been an assessment of the probation service around the UK, and overwhelmingly it's been ranked as good as an exceptional. But no one's talking about those words.
There are undoubtedly exceptional probation officers who work extremely hard. But the amount of people who go back into prison, having been in prison, is far, far too high, and we need to learn from around the world about what works to make sure people come out of prison and stay out of prison.
Yes, exactly the point. Can we just deal with the privatisation point? How is, if you say you want to give people an incentive to do better in the probation service, why can't that be done within the government-run probation service? Why does it have to be privatised?
Well, it can be done within any organisation that can provide the service and the level of care, and that's what's important.
Well, why can't the current probation service do that?
I'm sure that many people in the current probation service can, but what matters is not, you know, whether the probation service reports directly to the Justice Minister. What matters is whether it works in keeping people out of prison once they've left prison.
Harriet.
Well, I befriended this gang and I have known them now for about 5 years, and I knew them from when they were 16. And as they've gone through various systems, I've sort of seen things through their eyes. And one of them is the criminal justice system. And Paris has obviously had a very good experience of probation, but I have to admit that I haven't. And I have found that these young boys go to prison, they come out, and we must remember that under the age of 25, you have 75% reoffending rates within 1 year. Well, certainly my boys would have reoffended within the first day that they came out of prison, because when teenage boys go to prison, they get a lot to eat, they grow, and they've grown out of all their clothes. They would have robbed the very first day. And I didn't find the probation system at all helpful. They were just simply, I mean, for example, they have £40 when they came out of, and the probation just sends them all around the place. that £40 goes almost by the second day.
But Harriet, what is your impression of the effect of privatisation? What do you think it would be? I mean,
Well, I am
you favour it?
I'm actually quite keen, because I last week went to see a charity that would be affected by this, with St Giles Trust charity, who actually use a lot of ex-offenders in their charity to help mentor. And they would be one of the sort of charity who would be used for, and we must remember this is only low and medium risk. It's that the high-risk prisoners are remaining with probation. And they are going to go into the jails, and they will see them right at the beginning of their sentence. Because what goes wrong is that there's no sort of overall structure for these boys. They come out, there's nowhere for them to know a job. So this is what will be done, and then they will be judged on whether they succeed.
The woman there on the left.
How do you think companies like G4S and Serco are going to take care of people, given their current practices that have been criticised?
All right, fine. Well, no, hold on, Harriet. I'll put the... It's a question... It's a question I'd like to hear Jeremy Brown on, because he was, until earlier this month, the Home Office Minister in the coalition with the Liberal Democrats, and presumably this issue came up. Were you in favour of it? And what's your answer to the lady there?
It's run by the Justice Department, not the Home Office, but there is obviously overlap, and I am in favour of it because, as a couple of members of the panel have already said, the biggest problem that we have to try and crack is reoffending, and we're up at about 75–80% reoffending rates for young men coming out of prison within a year, and obviously that's bad for those individuals because we want to try and rehabilitate them, we want them to make a constructive contribution to society, and it's bad for all of us because they may break into our houses or cars or whatever it might be. So this is an absolutely sort of crucial area that we as society need to try and get to grips with. And I think if we can find new imaginative ways to make probation services work better, more effectively, particularly for those categories of people, then why shouldn't we? Why do we think that one size fits all is the best solution? And I've been into prisons in the last year as a minister, and there's some very imaginative work being done. For example, there are large numbers of prisoners who have misused drugs, and some of the work being done with them so that they have a service which runs through from when they're in prison and on release continues to support them when they're released have had some very good results. There's been a lot of pilot studies in prisons about what can be done to try and help prisoners in terms of seeing their families more often in prison, and whether that reduces reoffending.
The issue is privatisation. Why?
Sorry,
I want to go back to the question. Let me go. No, Harriet, hold on. I want to go back to the questioner who wants to come in on this. Are you getting the answers that satisfy you, or are you still?
I'm not, and I'm very tired. I'm very, very tired of hearing this coupling of the fact that we have an acknowledged and rated excellent probation service, and the government keep mentioning this problem with young men coming out of prison and reoffending, and their reoffending rates. The probation service, rated excellent and effective in its work, has never had responsibility for that group. So you have your little trial, you have your pilot, they do the work extremely well. And it's not fair to keep producing this statistic about young men coming out of prison when they have never been the responsibility of the probation service.
Chris Bryan.
I think the lady's absolutely right. There is clearly an issue about reoffending in the country. We all accept that, and successive governments have never managed to crack this. But in the end, I don't think that has anything to do with the privatisation of the probation service. And I say to Harriet and to Jeremy, who've talked very warmly about the work that certain charities have done, I just think charities should be the added bit. They shouldn't be doing it instead of the government. The probation service, and there are lots of reasons for reoffending. In my constituency, obviously, as every constituency MP gets, you get quite a lot of people who come through the door who you see 4 or 5 years later again and have problems. But the reasons for reoffending might have something to do with the fact that there's 1 million young people unemployed under the age of 25. It might have something to do with the fact that it's almost impossible for many people to get housing under the age of 25, and a whole series of social issues, and let alone our failure to deal with the massive drugs problem that there is in the country.
I want to go to Harriet.
I just thought this lady...
Harriet, yes.
I just thought this lady here asked a very good question that really put the finger on the point for what, for me, is the weak part of this, is that those big companies, GS4, that they are the only ones at the moment who can afford to invest up front. Because if you're going to judge a company by if they can stop someone reoffending within a year, you have to put a lot of work and a lot of money up front to do that. And so the small charities obviously can't do that, and that is definitely a weakness. And what I'm hoping is that those big companies will use the small charities, because you need to have individuals.
I think that's a little bit...
How does that foster
maybe me being
competition?
too optimistic, but then I would agree
I mean,
with you.
G4S
It's a
did
problem.
such a good job for the Olympics, didn't they?
No, I agree, it's a problem.
All right. We've got 4 or 5 minutes.